But this guy debating me, I'm much smaller of an account. I have 25,000. He has 484,000. He's been on major channels. He has everything to lose if he were to accept a debate with me on evolution and Christianity. He has everything to lose, so why would he do it? He's very defensive, too, when I engage with him. That's what I found. Anyway, we'll take a look.
May even believe in evolution. It's called Beyond Evolution by Sygart. How do you feel about being a heretic and going to hell for writing this book?
Oh, I've been much worse in my life. So, you know, comparatively speaking, I'm doing okay now.
Okay. Well, that's good. So
just laughing heresies away. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, but going through the book, it's very interesting. You had mentioned that you were writing this book last time you were on. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's going to just make everyone super happy and excited. Why don't you tell us about it?
It might make a few people a little concerned or upset. I don't know. Yeah, the book is Beyond Evolution basically refers to the idea that evolution is true. I mean, I have no argument about the truth of evolution, but it's not the basic central principle of biological science, which a lot of people assume that it is. And that's on both sides. There are people, atheist scientists or just atheists who think, well, evolution explains everything, so we certainly don't need a God. Mm-hmm. And there are some Christians who think that evolution is evil because it explains everything, and therefore we don't need God.
Wow. We're really kicking this off with some high Q level takes here, according to Sygart. The categorization he just made for Christians who reject evolution, it's because Christians think evolution is evil because evolution explains everything. What a boomer.
So,
what an absolute lackluster take there.
The fact is that none of that is
riveting, yeah.
True. It doesn't explain everything. It is not anti-biblical. It is not.
Yes, it is. Evolution is definitely anti-biblical. It's anti-biblical because it has to distort creation. It also has to present a form of death before the fall. It also has to give Adam a father who's a creature, who's a biological creature. That means that sex existed, right? So the creation of man was after the creation of everything else. It was arbitrary. Pick Adam. Man wasn't made in God's image from the start, from their view. Man evolved, and then God arbitrarily picked an evolved beast to become, quote, image bearer status.
Not anti.
Olaf, 50, Noakes, thank you so much. Christianity and Darwinism evolution is syncretism because it attempts to combine two religious beliefs. Yeah, it's definitely the case. It's also I would argue that it combines a kind of Hinduism with Christianity. It also assumes basically these people are arguing always from some sort of classical foundationalist paradigm where they're really trying to fit their theology, which has to be revelatory, supra-rational, miraculous, supernatural, beyond our understanding of the temporal. And they have to fit and try to smuggle their theology into the natural world. Or they try to smuggle what they think and hold to be true. In this case, he just accepts evolution for some reason. He holds this to be true, and then he tries to smuggle, because he doesn't actually hold exactly the evolutionary view either. This is common, by the way. This happened with my debate with Redeemed Zoomer. He actually didn't hold to what evolution proponents believe. He twisted a little bit of evolution, and he twisted a lot of theology of Christianity. Christopher Scott, $5. Thank you so much.
Christian in any way, and it's not worth fighting over. So one of the main points I want to make in the book is that
unbelievable, potentially holding heretical positions on creation, on the image-bearer status of mankind, humanity, what it means for Christ to take on human nature. It's not a good, imagine this guy at the councils. Imagine this guy meeting up with, I don't even know, like any of the, like Irenaeus. And he's like, God, St. Irenaeus, it's just not worth fighting about. I mean, they use the word Christ. They don't hold that he's truly God. He's just, what is all this fighting about? What the fighting about?
We should stop using evolution as a way to divide the church, which it has become. We have enough problems now in these days.
This is such a Jewy take, by the way. This is like lawyer language. This is like when someone goes to the room and the lawyers meet during a divorce, like daddy and mommy are fighting. Notice that the actual argument is from a concern that pluralism, that they're fighting. Like, pluralism's true. You can hold different Christian positions. Why don't we all just get along? Why are we fighting about evolution? There's so much more. I mean, it's such a weak take.
With division, with enmity, with not, being...
Oh, there's a problem with Christianity dividing? Oh, okay. That's not biblical. What?
Able to get along. And what we have, it's okay to disagree as long as we know that this issue of evolution, pretty much everyone that I've heard agrees it's not a salvation issue. It's not really a heretical issue. There are some extremists who think that it is, but most young earth creation.
And by extremists, he means probably orthodox. Probably what he calls extremists, right? Notice how already the gaslighting. I mean, what a sneaky little old boomer goblin this guy is.
I know, who I have good relations with, don't feel that way, and I think that the idea on the other end, which is that evolution explains everything, which is also not true. Those people are more interested in a culture war against Christianity than they are about, trying to explain evolution, because many of them don't really understand it very well anyway.
I would wreck you, Cy Gart. I would totally wreck you in a debate on evolution.
Well, this book is doing more than that. You're actually going to argue in the book, which you do, that there are discoveries.
John Yates, $5. It's not heretical to say men were once monkeys. Well, they would push back on that, John. Thank you for the $5. They would say that there was a bunch of beasts, and then God plucked one of the beasts and made them Adam. So they're biologically the same as monkeys, but now they're metaphysically different, which is another problem that Michael Jones doesn't understand for whatever reason from his broken theology. We'll see later on when I ask him the question. He stumbles the question. He totally doesn't know what to do with it.
Discoveries in biological evolution, which
also that nose is sauce.
They're pointing to God's existence.
Yes.
For anyone interested, I did a video kind of like this a couple of years ago called "Was Evolution Inevitable?" Using some of the stuff that I got from Cy Gart here. There's aspects of evolution which are, here's what I can say. The fine-tuning argument for God's existence. The universe is fine-tuned for life. Well, what if we take that one step further? What if the universe is fine-tuned to produce life? And there are certain processes.
Wow, he's already off the mark here. This is one of my key counters to evolution, because evolution assumes to be the mechanism that produces the ability to produce life, right? You grant them the first replicators, And then you ask them, cool, so evolution actually has to produce the two sexes, right? And they say, yeah. You go, how does that happen? So he just skips, just like the evolution proponent does, whether they're atheist or, quote, Christian. And they start from, oh, look, life, it's happening. It's happening. We're producing. We're reproducing. There's sex. There's all this stuff, right? Well, no, that's the thing in question in regards to evolution, guy. You don't just start from the ability to reproduce, right, sexually. You have to explain that from the evolutionary view. Hello. It's like that. It's like, I don't even know. It's like, like Men in Black where they have that zapper and you just forget everything. I feel like this is what's happening over and over again. Brady Harvey, $5. Let's hit the goal, gang. Jimbob even lowered his standards for us. I'm not a citizen yet and I pay my taxes. Yeah, good point. Good point. I suspect IP is just chasing confirmation bias. Absolutely.
In chemistry, in biology, which are constrained by nature to make life go in certain directions. So Simon Conway Morris says, if you were to rewind the tape of life and start over, you would get human life again or something very similar.
Right.
And that would mean that the universe is fine-tuned to make certain forms of life like human life. So
see, this is all coming from a classical foundationalist view, which is really like, you're just examining the evidence and the world around you, and you're using your reasoning, and you're coming to inductive claims about the world, and you're trying to basically build your theology around that. It's a reversal. It's instead of building your let's say, discovering your theology through revelation, revelation being the highest, science being the lowest, by the way. This is their problem. They actually have a worldview problem. This is why it's so frustrating when people debate Jay on his channel and they hold a typical view like this. He's already found that they're arguing from a different paradigm itself, and then he tries to question the paradigm, not the claims, the paradigm. IP is smarter than you? He probably is. That's irrelevant, 20 Faces. He probably is. He probably, for the sake of argument, if smart means holding information in your head, sure. But what good is it to be smart if your theology is heretical? 20 Feces. Jason McGinney, $5. There's your experiment. Just rewind the clock of life and start over. Yeah. Just actually imagine it, Jason. You just imagine it being rewound and running it back through your head that it would happen. Yeah. Solid Snake, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships.
What you're talking about in the book is building on a lot of that and bringing up a lot of really interesting.
TJ says, showed my friend your debate with Redeem Zoomer. He says that soul doesn't have to change, so your logical entailments are fine. Human can be a crab. That's fine. Well, here's the argument, okay? Any argument against those who accept the entailments? Yeah, so if it's the case, which Redeem Zoomer bit the bullet and he said, a human nature can be a donkey. A human nature can be in a donkey. He said that in the debate. Or a crab. Here's the problem. From a Christian position, being made in the image of God isn't just our faculties and our reasoning and our logic, nor is it just our sense of morality or our position of stewardship, but it includes being made in such a way that our very form, that our body, mind, and spirit are made with purpose. What does purpose mean? Purpose includes knowing, loving, praising God, but also fulfilling obligations in the world. So if your form, our hands, our body, our mouths, our eyes, our creative abilities, which are compatible perfectly with our form, our hands, our eyes, our mouth, the fact that we speak, the fact that we sing, these are things that are aspects and reflective of how we're created, why we're created, in what way we're created, distinct from the beasts and the animals and the trees and the plants. So this problem is, if it's only the soul one aspect of the tripartite man made in God's image. You're basically saying, oh, the only aspect of being made in God's image is the one aspect, which is the animated soul, which is broken. Because if it's true that only the soul aspect is what makes you a human, and it's not the body, mind, and soul, it's not tripartite, one, you're not reflective of the tripartite God. Two, you could change form and no longer be capable of fulfilling your duties. So, for instance, I use platypus liturgy as a rhetorical counter to this. If evolution happened and it's still happening and it's biologically determined, it could be the case in a million years. Christ comes back to judge the living and the dead, and he's judging the living, but they're hunched over beasts. They're unrecognizable from the previous form that he, Christ himself, took on. So that means Christ assumed a particular beast mode. A particular, not a universal, a particular in time, what it just happened to look like humans looked like and acted like and walked like and such, right? In fact, if we evolved into a hunched over beast, maybe the Eucharist is just in a dog bowl on the ground. You know, this is how horrific the view is. It's horrifying. We shouldn't cause division, immediately proceeds to call a bunch of Christians extremists. Yeah, this guy's such a snake, this guy. Definitely a snake. Gart.
Data that people should check out, where they're pointing to things in science which are actually pointing to design, not as in like intelligent design, like that whole movement.
I didn't know Christians believed God has a physical body. What are you talking about? Christ has a body. The God the Father. We don't hold the God the Father, so I don't know what you're talking about. 20 feces.
But like maybe
you stop straw manning. Are you capable of engaging in good faith ever, 20 feces? Or are you just a roaming vat of shit? I'm just so tired of it, dude. We're tired of you.
Evolutionary processes themselves have been fine-tuned to bring about certain forms of life.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. And you know what we don't have is a good chemical or physical theory that explains the origin of life. But what you just said,
Jesus had a face in the Old Testament. Yeah. Walked in the garden. What does walked in the garden mean?
That I think is right, is we could find that. It probably exists. We just have no idea what it is. But I'm convinced that when we do find it, it's going to, like so many other things that we found in science, like the fine tuning and that you mentioned and other things, the origin of the universe, it's going to point to God, because
I said God has hands. Oh my gosh, you're retarded. You're actually retarded. And
as you said, Simon Conway Morris,
yeah, just block him. I don't even want to deal with it. He's already not listening. He's like not even following or trying. Just block him. I'm done with him. Get out of here. You're done. You're cooked. It's over. I don't even care. Get out of here.
His work is beautiful because what he shows is that there are laws that we don't know about that constrain what can happen. Not anything can happen in evolutionary science. In other words, the example I like to use is there are a lot of creatures that fly, but they all fly by beating wings. There are no jets. There are no air jets. There are water jets in animals, but nobody flies by taking off like a jet plane.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
And that's sort of a trivial example, but there are so many. I mean, the idea.
Vagine, what do you got to say?
What good is being smart if a small-shouldered, disheveled-bearded, guitar-playing redneck can just come and absolutely wreck your sheet with basic logic?
That's funny. Sorry, I'm just on a tear blocking people today. It's just, we got getting a lot lately. And they're all so safe in the comments, and they never actually call in.
Idea that our eyes and the eyes of an octopus, and I have a figure of this in the book, look almost the same. And an octopus is an invertebrate. I mean, the evolutionary connection is not there. But right. We ended up with the same structures, and there has to be a reason for that. And of course,
we ended up. You see how he presupposes evolution? We ended up. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought God created all the creatures. No, we ended up. It was an end. We're, dude, there is no end to evolution. What are you talking about? We ended up. No, this is why they're so inconsistent. They look at the world as it is. They take a half-baked version of evolution, a half-baked version of Christianity, and they say, look, we ended up this way. Well, no, I'm sorry, but evolution holds that there is no end. There's no moment where a stage is ended. There's no completion. The heart that's doing its job, and the liver that's doing its job, and the eyeballs that's doing its job, it's just an accidental function of chemistry. It's not an end product. It's not actually doing something purposeful. It's on its way of maybe not doing that. You know, if the dice don't roll properly. Okay? If our brains are just evolved, predetermined mechanical things, how do we use our brains to figure out that evolution is true? No, that's a perfect kind of reductio, honestly, Ruben. It's that argument has been in place, and these people just kind of say, well, no, I mean, we can still have knowledge and we can still have truth and evaluation. You go, oh, were you determined to say that from purely mechanistic, biological, what, chemistry? Your chemistry? My chemistry versus your chemistry. That's what a debate is, by the way. Like from an Evo proponent who's often a physicalist and a naturalist, debating about Evo is actually chemistry versus chemistry. And I always ask these people, how is it that a chemical reaction can be incorrect? So premise one, all evaluations and propositions and thoughts are chemical reactions. Premise two, chemical reactions can't be true or false. They're chemical reactions. There's no true chemical reaction. Conclusion, propositions, evaluations, and conclusions can't be true or false. They're chemical reactions.
Of course, Simon has hundreds of these examples in his books, and it's just obviously clear, I think, to me, that there are many more laws and rules and theories and ideas in biological science that we don't know yet, and that's really, I also make a big point of that in the book as well.
Yeah. Well, we're going to look at a video here in a minute about Ken Ham, and we're going to talk about your book as we sort of go through that. But we're going to get to some super chats here because people are already angry and have questions.
God bless Michael Jones. He sounds like a squeaky toy.
So get them in now.
Look, I have small shoulders. I'm not hating on you. We all have our strengths and gifts and weaknesses, and you know, I was made with small shoulders. You were made to sound like a dog toy,
folks. But let's take a couple super chats here, and then we will dive into some of that there and talk more about the book, because I just find this topic fascinating. The whole aspects of convergent evolution, the self-assembly processes. It just seems like life was fine-tuned by the universe. Like God wanted certain forms to come about.
Wait, life was fine-tuned by the universe? Maybe he misspoke there. No, the universe doesn't have intent. Joel, $5. I like how they can just drop in the universe whenever they want to fill in the holes of their trash metaphysics. Yeah, the universe. Why not? The universe. Is that a particular or a group of particulars? Is the universe a singular particular? What is this? Universe. Where? That's a metaphysical term. Where is this universe? There's actually nothing called singularly a universe in nature. Isn't that funny? I never grant that to naturalists. They always use this term universe. I go, where? And they go, everywhere. Are you serious, Jimbob? You're really asking where the universe is? Yeah. Where is it? It's everything. Oh, cool. So it's nowhere? So what are you saying? Yeah. Okay, cool. You've pointed to nothing. I arrive late, Freddie says. Are these people trying to justify how Adam had a monkey parents? Yes, they will. They will.
Absolutely.
So, like, that kind of points to, might be pointing to theism. We'll see. So Major Tom Fisher, not just Tom Fisher, but Major Tom Fisher says, how does theistic evolution deal with Genesis 2:7 saying God formed man from dust and not a man? Are there any good verse by verse Genesis commentaries that help answer specific questions like this? I don't know of any commentaries that do that, but there are two approaches you can take. So what was his name? It's Swamidass, Joshua Swamidass's approach. Yeah. So you have humans.
IP isn't a naturalist. I know it ends up not mattering, Dr. Emi, because even if you're not a naturalist, if you, in this particular instance, if you argue for your theology from a naturalist position, like the consequences are the same. Doesn't matter if he's not a naturalist. He's currently arguing from naturalism to fit a naturalistic explanation of evolution inside and try to smuggle it into Christianity and smash them together. It's like putting pickles on a sandwich with peanut butter and pretending it's like it works, you know?
It's already existing, and then Adam is like a special creation by God that blends in with the population of humans that are already existing. So you have humans that are established in Genesis 1, then Adam is his own special creation in Genesis 2, and then he
You see this? You see what he's doing? He doesn't even understand the gibberish he's saying. This makes sense to him. God created a bunch of beasts. Two of those beasts were what? Adam's parents? That means there's sex before Adam's created. Okay, cool. All right, so now you have sex in the Eden because you created man before Adam, and then man needed to have babies, and Adam's a baby of a beast. Okay? Not only that, but now Adam being made, not made from God, but made from a synthesis of a previous creature. The only thing different is this installment upgrade that he did at, the Apple store called God's image bearer status. Well, sorry, dude. If Adam's parents were beasts, Adam, right after obtaining this new status from God, could very well have bound his parents up and slow roasted them over a fire. And they go, well, what's the problem? What's the problem is that breaks the hierarchical metaphysics in Christianity of the Father and the Son. Not only that, but it creates a scenario. It creates a scenario where Adam could enslave his own father, right? And do anything he wants to his father, right? So there's no, now it's a biological problem, because if Adam, the first actual human, forget about those beasts, comes from a beast biologically, then the form of Adam is beastly. That means Christ himself took on the status, when we say human nature, of beast. That Christ himself is downstream. He's a descendant of a beast. I also got Redeemed Zoomer to say this, to bite this bullet. So if I were to debate someone like Inspiring Philosophy, and he brought this up and he started defending this, right, what he's saying right now, I would simply ask, is Adam a descendant of a beast? You'd have to say yes. You say, is the humanity that Christ took on descendant from a beast? You'd have to say yes. Conclusion is Christ is a descendant from a beast. Rolling $5. Between 25 and 150 species of life going extinct each day. How does evolution explain this? Seems survival of the fittest are losers. They can't explain anything, honestly. They tell a story. They don't really explain anything.
Descendants interbreed with the humans that are already existing on Earth.
They interbred, bro. Adam, being made in the image of God, interbred with beasts. Bestiality. Christ is a product of bestiality. What is wrong with you? Do you hear this? He's just saying this like it's like, well, we can get out of this problem. All we have to do is create a Adam as one type of beast, and then the previous Adam is another type of beast, and then they interbreed, and the human bred with the beast, and they had sex with beasts. Why doesn't he just have a debate with IP? Because I'm too small. He won't debate me. What, are you kidding me?
So that's perfectly compatible with evolution. His Joshua Swamidasa's approach.
Yeah.
So you have humans already existing, and then Adam is like a special creation by God.
See this? Humans. He's already changed what it means to be a human. Sorry, dude. From a theological position, from a Christian position, what it means to be human is to be made in the image of God. So now he's making a violation of law of identity. He's saying there's humans over here that are not actually human, but they're human, and then there's God. Then there's Adam, human, who's a human. Do you guys see the problem here? He has two kinds of humans. That means God created a human that's not made in the image of God, so he can't tell me what that is. What the heck is a human not made in the image of God, dude?
It blends in with the population of humans that are already existing.
So Adam blends in with the populations of humans who are not made in the image of God. So if I ask IP, is a human definitionally from the Christian position made in God's image? He says yes. And then I go, aren't you arguing like from this position that there's a human that's not made in the image of God? He says yes.
So you have humans that are established in Genesis 1, then Adam is his own special creation in Genesis 2, and then his descendants interbreed with the humans that are already existing on Earth.
The beasts. You're a sick man. You are a sick, sick man. Humans, as we know it, you and me, are products of bestiality, according to IP, what he's saying right now. Oh, it just gets me worked up, dude, because they just say it so flippantly. Per evolution, it's all beast. If things are in constant change, are members of the same, quote, species in different stages? Yes. If they are, how can you classify anything? Well, yeah, Dark, that's a big point I bring up in a question later, which is in regards to the universality of humanity, which he's already broken, by the way. Why, if you broke it once, why not break it again? That means Christ, when he assumes human nature, he's not actually assuming a universal human nature. He's assuming a beast in a process. And if he's assuming a beast, a particular beast in a process, he's not taking on the universal human nature. He's taking on a particular, in time, one nature that's just his own, just that beast. And if that's the case, how do you redeem and trample death? How do you redeem humanity if there's no such thing as humanity? There's no such thing as humanity under evolution, man.
And so that's perfect.
Man. Hey, man.
Compatible with evolution. His book is called The Genealogical Adam.
Yes.
The other view I've taken is that Genesis 2 has a lot of metaphors. People tend to think it's got to be entirely literal or entirely allegorical, and that's just a fallacy. That it's filled with metaphors. For example, it says, the two shall become one flesh. Well, that obviously is a metaphor. Then you go back. This is kind of talked about in the book, The Lost World of Adam and Eve.
What a squeaky toy. What a poor guy. Poor guy. it's almost like, I mean, this is just bad. It's like he picks and chooses what's a metaphor. He's, like, so if, oh, it's a metaphor. The two become one. The two become one flesh. Marriage is a metaphor. That means like, communion is a metaphor. You're not actually eating God. It's just a metaphor. There's no body of God. There's no, none of that's real. It's just, we live in a world of symbols in poetry.
By John Walton. So you can check that book out. He points out that when Eve is made from the side of Adam, and the word isn't rib, it's selah, which means side or half. And so she's made from the half of Adam. And so this may be like metaphorical language as well. And that might also be what's going on in Genesis 2. So we it's sort of like an inference from other parts of the chapter that this might be going on. And I discussed this in my book or in my video, Genesis 2, The Dust and the Rib. You can check that out. Anything you want to add, Dr. Gart?
Well, I would just say that dust it's based on what you're saying. Dust is a great metaphor for natural chemical elements. And, and so in other words, what it's saying is that God used nature to make humans.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my gosh. It's like, this is the kind of shit you have to think in order to cope and defend evolution, which is already on its own. Forget theology. Forget Christianity for a second. Evolution on its own can't be defended on its own. And these guys are just coping for whatever reason. Maybe it's the circles they're in. Maybe they look stupid. It feels stupid or whatever it is. God makes. So God makes from his own will and power and word. He makes beyond our understanding of what fabrication is, manipulation. The view here is that God needed to manipulate. So it's like, oh, God created from his very power and will and intent. Just straight from God power. The very nature of God allows him to create in a way that is incomprehensible from a naturalistic standpoint. But he has to cope and say, well, no, well, so chemical reactions, God used the chemical reactions. He harnessed the chemical reactions. So you notice how, like, they're totally fine, God not needing any existing matter. He's basically a Mormon. God doesn't need any existing matter to make matter, right? He creates. Right? But now it's a problem. Once there's matter and once there's stuff and once you have stuff, then it's a problem. He needs to create from it. He needs to. Like, they're coping and saying, well, God created man from dust. Well, you could interpret that however you want, but it doesn't follow that evolution makes any sense, dude. God's a moonshiner. Why hasn't this squeaky nerd evolved into a man yet? Poor guy.
In other words, humans didn't come from some, ghostly spirit thing, as some religions hold. That humans are just created by some strange supernatural, non-materialistic material, whatever. No, we have the same atoms and the same molecules as the rest of.
Dude, this guy's nuts. He just argued, even if God used existing matter or dust to form us like clay and give us, they take that like, oh, the forming of the clay is the long guided process of being a beast and a fish and into man, right, or whatever. They're still denying something essential about Christianity, which is God made us in the image of him. He made us in the image of him. That's a tripartite nature, like a form, spirit, mind. Okay, like it's three. Like you can't say what a human is from a Christian perspective without saying, well, it has spirit, mind, and body. You can't remove one and you're like, oh, look at that. That human nature just floated into an orchid.
Of nature, and so that's correct. God did form man from the dust in that way.
Yeah, eternal. Basically, I mean, he's not saying eternal matter, but that's the point, though. Like he needs to reformat creation and the creation of man to fit evolution, but he doesn't reformat the creation of matter to fit evolution or naturalism. He's picking and choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I actually hold very closely to Josh.
The image evolved, right? JB, the image evolved, the evolving image of God.
Swaminatha's views of the creation of humanity through Adam and Eve. I agree with that. And
feminism is
I think more than that, I think what's interesting to me, and I have a chapter on this in the book as well.
I got a chapter on it in the book. I have a book on it. I got the book.
That what makes us human, I mean, it's probably
what makes us
quite
what makes us human from a Christian perspective, Sai?
Clear that we did evolve, our bodies evolved from apes, but we're not an ape.
Unbelievable. You see how they do this? So what makes something human? The body is irrelevant. This exact topic came up with Redeem Zoomer. What makes someone human from a Christian perspective, from their view, is not the form. That's irrelevant. Crab Eucharist, bro. Platypus liturgy, bro. Totally doable. What's your problem, man? Why are you so partial to form, Jimbob? What's wrong with you, bro? Right. So the human form has nothing to do with what it means to be human. It's irrelevant. It's just like take it or leave it. Nothing to do with our ability to make sounds and voice and sing beautiful music and make art and architecture, given that we have the form to do all of those things. We have the form to worship God. We have the form to worship God. From their view, their defense, you don't need the form. You don't need the form.
In terms of the way we behave. I mean, there's something about humans that's way beyond anything else in the living world. And that comes from being made in the image of God and having, our life breathed into us directly. And so we have qualities and characteristics that are not shared anywhere else. I mean, we're talking to each other on the internet and people are listening to us, and no other ape can do that.
No other ape can do that. Yeah, but the thing is, this is the problem with his view, is that now he's attributing the form. Now he's affirming the form, right? Because our form, right, lends itself to being able to make these things, right? It's still our form. It's not just brain in a vat making computers. We still have a form that is that is applied to engineering and crafting all sorts of things, creative and functional. So obviously, not any animal can make the things we do, not just because of our mental capacity,
Or ever has. And the same thing is true for music and creativity of all kinds, art, science, technology, obviously.
Yeah, nothing to do with form, our bodily form, right?
And it's,
I don't know, the ability to have a vote, like our throats and our mouths and our tongues made in a specific way where we can say what we need to say, Nothing to do with form.
It's not just we didn't get the way we are through evolution. There's a lot of, I think, just so stories that you'll hear from certain people, especially some atheists, who say, oh yeah, our morality is because it's selective advantage if we're nice to people. That just doesn't work.
Hey, y'all, we got 3 more chats, 10 minutes to go. Let's get that 20 goal in the bucket. It's kind of a shame. Now, I'm definitely aggressive, so there's probably an element of how I am where these people are like, I don't want to get on with that guy, which that's my own fault. I just can't help myself sometimes. Like, I hear this stuff. I hear Inspiring Philosophy, who has a huge channel, has a huge influence on people who call themselves Christians or inquiring about Christianity. And he says flippantly that us, made in the image of God, who we are today, is a result of bestiality, and that's compatible with Christianity. That this should get you steaming. I mean, it's insane, the kind of takes. I mean, it's just so... The problem is there's not a third person pushing back on these noobs, these goobers. Murder the Media, $5. Thank you so much. 2 more chats there to go. Thank you so much. I'm steamy, bro. This is just like... It's so absurd what they're saying. And they only have super chats to get pushback. They don't have someone going, dude, what are you guys talking about? Stop right there. What are you saying? We're products of bestiality? Christ took on a nature that's derivative of bestiality, a synthesis between man and beast? I mean, you should be whipped in public. Goal in the bucket. Soup to code. Jimbob. Thank you so much. Come on. Thank you so much for reaching the goal. It's part of the Chris Stoon show. It's terrible. My dude, my internet is just going wonky right now. For the most part, evolution itself, at least from an orthodox perspective, there are absolutely outspoken critics and rejectors of evolution and its consequences. Because there's entailments there. There's entailments to the theology. And you don't reject evolution just because of the entailments, just so you know. You know what I mean? That's not the idea. You don't reject it just because it's incompatible. You can reject evolution without making a single theistic claim. You can reject evolution, I do it all the time, without appealing once to your theology. Once. It's so easy. It's what's so frustrating about this. It's so frustrating to watch people call themselves Christians and desperately, in such a weak, frail way, try to defend something that's on its own that you can't defend?
So this is one of the things that I think is beyond evolution. In other words, the nature of humanity is not part of the evolutionary story, in my view.
Yeah. I'm not sure where I would land on that, but I see what your point. So.
Yeah, it's a fairly it's a controversial view that I have. I know that, and I've had, actually, you and I.
The Hebrew word selam, image. Well, we're not talking about just the word image, enslaved by truth. That would be a word concept fallacy. But I agree. When we talk about image bearer of God, we're certainly not talking about just our appearance. But our appearance would be reflective of our form. So our form has purpose. If our form didn't have purpose and being made in the image of God didn't include necessarily our form, then we could fulfill our purpose without our form. But if our purpose is to serve, love God, worship God, start families, go to church, receive the Eucharist, participate in the sacraments, if there's a potential, if it's possible to be another form from the evolutionary view where that's impossible, where we couldn't do that, then there's a problem with that one aspect. The other aspect, enslaved by truth, and Redeemed Zoomer is the one who actually had to bite the bullet on this, is if the form is totally irrelevant, then it's true that human nature, in the way the image bearer status is conveyed through these people, could inhabit a non-human body. The human nature could inhabit a non-human body. Crabs, platypus liturgy.
I once had a.
Now, enslaved by truth, I know that you like to play the contrarian here, but you guys do have Lion King liturgy at your church, so I'm not surprised you're kind of coping about evolution here.
Discussion about that as well. In fact, we were talking about origin of
foundationalist view, like progressive, some sort of like story of progress. Which books are the videos I've done on the Old Testament? Look at the books I use there. Go through my cultural context, and I asked him,
okay,
what does he mean by
look
appropriate for that
watch
kind of thing? So
watch how they deal with my question.
This is from MadeByJimbob. He says premise.
Don't say my name like that. Don't say my name like that.
1, Christ assumed human nature. P2, evolution equals there is no universal human nature. Conclusion, Christ can't heal humanity if humanity isn't universal. And I asked him, what does he mean by universal human nature? And he says, made in God's image, mind, body, spirit, made to serve and know God.
Yeah, universal is just referring to the status of human nature. So when he's asking, what do you mean by universal human nature? You can't refer to human as a thing, as a category from a Christian view, or even from an evolutionary view, by the way, unless it's universal. What are you referring to? Well, this is a problem for IP because just 10 minutes ago, for those of you who were here, if you weren't here, I recommend rewinding it at some point. He said that God created beasts. He calls those humans, by the way, IP. Then he says God selected Adam as a unique human beast, and then Adam cross-pollinated with these other humans. Well, no, you can't have them both be human from a Christian perspective. You can't have them both be human. You can't have two human natures, universals. You can't have two universals referring to the same things. Oh, here's a human. What does that mean? Oh, it means beastly and not made in the image of God. What's this Adam? Oh, he's a human. He's made in the image of God. What? That doesn't make sense.
So first off, I would disagree.
The audio's probably cutting in and out. You got to refresh.
I don't think evolution means you can't have a universal human nature.
You don't. Well, that's not a counter argument. I don't care what you think, Michael. It's not only true that under evolution, you can't have a universal human nature because nature is changing. It's in flux. It's Hinduism. It's always changing. Under evolution, it's always changing. All of it. There's no universality of any species, by the way. But they're always morphing. They're only particulars. It's nominalism. It's because my internet keeps disconnected from OBS for some reason.
First of all, what it means to be made in the image of God, according to a lot of ancient Near Eastern scholars, is that it just means we've been elected. This is what
elected. Excuse me. It means you've been elected. This is totally nonsense theology, bro. So God creates man in his image. Create, the act of creation. But it means elected? I'm sorry. Elected means that whatever God's looking at already exists. Okay? He's already way off, dude. He has to mangle his theology immediately. Did you just hear what he said? We're just elected. It's like weird pseudo-Calvinists. Like, well, we got elected. Adam got elected. Got plucked from the beasts. A goat could be elected. Anything could be elected. A tree could be elected. A rock could be elected. It's wild.
Example, John Walton has pointed out. Michael Heiser has pointed this out. So, I mean, like this idea that that there's a universe, there needs to be some sort of human nature that's made in God's image, it doesn't necessarily follow.
Excuse me? It doesn't follow that if Christianity is true, there's a universality of human nature? Dude, this is brutal.
So I would reject that premise right there. And again, if you take Swamadas's view, you can have a special creation with Adam, and then
he's not a special creation, dude. He's not a special creation. Adam, from your very words, is among the current beasts, and he's elect, in your own words. And God breathes on him. You, Adam, you're the first man. But there's beasts already, so that means there's procreation already. Adam actually came from a beast.
By the time of Christ, everyone on earth is a descendant of Adam,
who had sex with animals. Adam, by your own words, just 10 minutes ago, his kind crossbreeded with animals, beasts who weren't human, who weren't made in God's image. Christ took on an image, the status of a human who came from bestiality. You sicko.
I bet if you dropped both these guys off at a gym, they would just sit around and read the labels on the dumbbells and plates, then come to a logical conclusion that using dumbbells makes you dumber.
This is so wild. I mean, what he's saying is so insane, and I just can't believe, like, his audience doesn't pick up on this. Who are you people? Who are you, 484,000 subs? Who are you? What are you? What are you doing?
Well, Adam came along, and Christ took on an image of a bestiality cult.
According, as he points out in his book, the Geological
Correct.
Adam. So you can. I don't think that would necessarily follow that evolution doesn't equal there's no universal human nature.
You've already admitted it. There isn't, right? Dude, IP, it's really simple. You've already conceded that there's no universality of human nature. Why? Because you referred to the first creatures who are not Adam as human. And then you referred to Adam as human. But you say that there's distinct statuses between the two of them. You've already conceded that there's two conflicting universal things called human, dude. You've already conceded in your stream, bro. He's like, oh no, I already folded, and I said that there's a human that's not made in God's image, and there's a human that is, and they're not identical, but they're called human. So okay, so the universal category called human can involve things that are not made in God's image. Okay.
And I think the conclusion
the opposite. I think the opposite would be true. I mean, evolution. Each species has a universal nature. That's sort of how we define species. Although it's not really.
No, under evolution, it doesn't, dude. You're just lying, bro. It's a lie from the old man.
Evolution, each species has a universal nature.
Yeah, temporarily. It doesn't hold, dude. It doesn't hold. Like evolution has to assume in the here now there's a species that it can only be itself until it dies. That's what it posits. But it also holds that species came from not itself. Okay? It came from not itself.
That's sort of how we define species.
No, dude.
It's not really how we define species, but
it's not.
It's true of species. So there are universal natures of species, and certainly
no. Evolution doesn't even have the capacity to say nature. Nature is metaphysical of the thing that the particulars are in. So evolution is a nominalistic view. All they're doing is looking at particulars and saying, well, for the sake of talking about it, we'll call this thing that can breed with itself or whatever a species, but it's not an actual thing.
So I don't accept premise 2 either. I think that's not true.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it works. All right, we'll get to...
Oh, yeah, it doesn't seem like it works. You're yourself. I'll fight you. I don't care if you win. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it works. We just say no. We just say no.
Into some more super chats here in a bit, so get them in now, folks. I'm going to start by we're going to look at this video from Ken Ham.
We're not doing experiments.
Oh, this is another part. This is another part that is that obviously in my arguments against evolution and science. Listen to Cy cope about historical imagined science. Watch this.
Certainly for humans, so I don't accept premise 2 either. I think that's not true.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it works. All right, we'll get...
Yeah. Just dismiss it. Yep. Dude, hey, Michael Jones, if I debated you on evolution, you would not be able to get away from that argument. You couldn't just say it doesn't seem like it doesn't work. You couldn't do that in a debate.
Into some more super chats here in a bit, so get them in now, folks.
A little squeaky toy.
I'm going to start by we're going to look at this video from Ken Ham because I wanted to torture Dr. Gart here by showing him a Ken Ham video. This is Ken Ham shreds evolution with one simple question, and this got like 135,000 views, which, okay, I guess we're doing that, but you're not going to believe what the question is. It's mind-blowing, this question.
Of it, we claim the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
Were you there?
How old do you think the Earth is? 4.5662 billion years.
No, you weren't there.
What is the...
That's the question, Dr. Gart. Were you there?
Yeah, I've heard it before.
Yeah, that's actually an important aspect of science. In fact, it's the first step in the scientific method is to observe something.
Yeah.
Actually, I was there. I'm actually older than I look.
This just made me, every time he says this, it just makes me think of like, well, I guess every single forensic case where a murderer has gone to prison has got to be thrown out because 9 times out of 10, when the prosecutors aren't there to actually observe the murder. They have to go on DNA evidence,
Yeah, DNA evidence can be found in a place called there, Michael. Really? Really? This is like such a terrible analogy because in the instance where a murder is being investigated, there is a thing, a place, a time where a murder happens. To say, oh, you weren't there. Well, you still have evidence from there, even if you weren't there. You arrive at the scene. That means you have access to there in time. You don't know what happened in the past there, but you can investigate it. Why? Because it's still in one location. There's a dead body in a location, Michael Jones. Is your brain totally fried or what? So evolution proponents can say 50 billion years ago X happened, and we say, did anyone observe it? And you go, yeah, but the judge didn't observe the murder. Nobody was there. Yeah, there's still evidence there. You can go to the location of the murder, dude. You can look at DNA because it's there. The DNA is there. Brady Harvey, $10. They just hand-waved your premises. IP knows damn well what the universal nature means in a philosophical sense. Yeah, he hand-waved me. He did a bitch move.
Sometimes other eyewitness reports, but like this idea that like they had to be there to know this happened is just absurd nonsense. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Another great counter argument from the squeaky toy. To claim something happened 70 billion years ago, the idea that someone had to observe it is just nonsense. Really? Really?
Historians know that Tutmosis III was raiding in Canaan on numerous campaigns. No one would debunk them by saying, well, were you there in the...
No, but there were other people there. So when you talk about 50 billion years ago, when there's no observers and no one to witness or to even, write it down or even construct a narrative around the event, that's disanalogous. Because when you're referencing biblical times, there are still what? Humans.
14
silly squeaky toy.
Hundreds BC to see Tutmosis doing that. No, we have good data that suggests that he was.
Yeah, because data was from humans.
We can make that logical inference.
Yeah, because someone documented it. Like, even someone just writing about it is better than nobody being there at all. You just refuted yourself, dude.
Scientists have even better data for dating the age of the Earth.
No, it's not even close. You can't say that. You couldn't possibly know from data the age of the Earth. What are you saying? Really? You're going to... Well, why should I be surprised? He buys into evolution. Why would I be surprised if he buys into the very flawed dating methods? The age of the Earth? Dude, there's not even a distinct moment in time where the naturalist can say the Earth is itself, becomes itself, right? Isn't it funny? The age of the Earth, when did it start? When's the beginning of the thing called the Earth? Is it one stone under their view? Is it one meteor? Is it a glob is it 5 feet when it's 5 feet in diameter from their story? Like, what is this thing you're calling the Earth from this cosmological evolutionary paradigm? What's the age of something that's an accumulation? What's the age of it? It's not even an object, dude. It's this ongoing sort of piecing together of molecules. There's not even a thing you can point to. The philosophical problems with everything he's saying are just so rich. Craig P., $10. Mike Jones, who? Do you have a background with a library behind you? Debate is won. Yeah, so buy the books in the background. I got to get some books, dude. That's why I'm not being taken seriously.
Well, I mean, the whole idea that that, because this is part of some young Earth creationists who say that only some kinds of science are legitimate. They call the other kind historical science.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
In other words, that we don't know what we're not doing experiments.
That's required for scientific theory.
Because this all happened in the past.
Making narratives of the past isn't doing science.
So we can't do any experiments. And that kind of historical science is not as good as the experimental science, which is done in present time. Mm-hmm. That is complete nonsense.
Look, this is twice these two dipshits said nonsense as a counter. Oh, that's just nonsense. What? I could get a bunch of atheistic naturalists to even agree with the premise that, quote, historical science isn't as rigorous and doesn't give you as much explanatory power as experimental science. It's just nonsense.
I mean, there isn't a scientist, and I don't know about the guys who work with Answers in Genesis, how they deal with this, because no other scientist would agree with that.
No scientist would agree that the rigidity of the scientific method using an experiment gives you better explanatory power than one that doesn't have an experiment. Are you serious? No science would say that?
Just so
no scientist would say that.
So obviously wrong. I mean,
it's so obvious. You know, this is the second time these guys use the word obvious too.
You know, there's a whole field called epidemiology, which is a very important field in medicine.
Yeah. And that requires, to know what epidemiology is, you would actually have to be able to observe and demonstrate it, right? You'd have to actually demonstrate it in the real time. So you wouldn't even know the term epidemiology, Psi, unless you had experimental science, not historical science. This guy's brain is so fried. The only possible explanation I could have is sin. It cannot be mental faculty. It cannot be rational. It's not about his intellect.
That looks at past epidemics and past diseases and tells you what were the risk factors and how to avoid them. I mean, the number of
a risk. Listen to this guy. He just made the statement that historical science, where you have no observation or experiment, is just as valid as present, and he uses epidemiology, and he says words like risk. Risk. How would you determine the risk if you didn't have causal explanatory power in front of you through experimentation?
Actual discoveries that were made using his quote historical science?
No.
Is
no, not historical science. Discoveries are made through experimental science. And then you use your findings and you transpose them back into the past. That's what you do. You don't ever get the discovery from the past, bro, because the past isn't something you can look at or observe. There's no discoveries from the past. You don't actually have direct contact with the past, bro. You wild old freak.
Tremendous.
This guy definitely has a collection of weird robes.
And it's in all fields. I mean, it's true in
he's definitely wearing those like slippers right now.
Technology, it's true in physics, chemistry, it's true everywhere. Certainly geology. I mean, you'd have to take away the whole science of geology.
Oh, really? Yeah, the science of geology.
If you only based things on current experiments and didn't look at the past.
Really?
We wouldn't know anything about tectonic plates. We wouldn't know anything about, anything related to, we wouldn't find oil. I mean, we wouldn't.
We wouldn't find oil? I'm sorry. I think the first time we found oil was like mid early 1800s. Plate tectonics, the theory, even the conception of it was like 1916. Only until 1960 did people sort of like rigidly undergird and support plate tectonics. We wouldn't have found oil. We wouldn't have found oil. Oil literally leaks out of the ground. I'm at a loss for words. We wouldn't have found oil without plate tectonics. Okay, boomer.
We wouldn't be able. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that this idea has spread among young Earth creationists because it's so obviously false.
Say obviously false again, boomer. That makes your argument valid.
So yeah, that question, were you there? I mean, every time I hear that, you know, I don't even want to talk about it.
Wow, great argumentation, Sai. You guys are really freaking on fire. I mean, you guys are just crushing it. I mean, holy crap, you're killing it. You're cooking, as the kids say. You're cooking. I mean, should we have a counter? How many times so far in this conversation where they said it's obviously true? To even, like, you know, question it is so mind-boggling that anyone could ever. I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, ew. I just can't even believe it. You know, every time someone even questions billion years old stuff happening. I mean, the idea that a scientist needs some sort of criteria for... Where's Eagle? Yeah, I don't know. The idea that a scientist or someone needs some sort of criteria, epistemic criteria for knowing what was going on 70 billion years ago. I mean, this idea that you need some verification methods is just absurd. It's absurd.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, silly.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, Michael Jones says. Let's just... Come on, guys. It's just ridiculous.
Has the universe been doing for 14.8 billion years?
You didn't see that happen.
Based on the assumption that the universe is 13.8 billion years old.
We asked the evolutionists, those who believe in millions of years, were you there? And they said, no, we weren't, but you weren't either. No, I wasn't there, but I know someone who was, and I have his word. Are you interested? What's one of the main lessons?
I mean, like, here's my biggest gripe with young Earth creationists. They constantly assume their interpretation of Scripture,
says the Protestant. Says the guy who's reinterpreting Genesis. Says the guy who just mangled Scripture. Says the guy who just went against 2,000 years of hermeneutic authority. Says the guy who just said Adam and man as we know it, including Christ, is a byproduct of bestiality. I mean, this is like irony on tap.
is like the divine interpretation of Scripture. How big of an ego do you have to think you have? You know who didn't have that big of an ego? Galileo's opponents, Cardinal Bellarmine, and the Foscarini letter. When he's talking about the Copernican model, he says, listen, I'm paraphrasing, of course, in modern terminology, but he says, like, listen, if you turn out to be right, it just means we have to reinterpret Scripture carefully.
Right.
Like, we don't have
We have to reinterpret Scripture carefully. Right. Yeah, that was the purpose of Scripture, yeah. Yep. You know, the church compiled Scripture. It wasn't for practice. It wasn't, you know.
Nim Nim, 13 billion years, hot cocoa, and Christmas carols.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Scripture wasn't a continuum from the lectionaries and the practice of the tradition itself. No. We were just waiting for Gutenberg so that people can reinterpret Scripture a million times. Oh, Well, this isn't working. We're going to have to go back to Scripture and reinterpret it to fit the natural world.
Have everything right here, but I mean, like the hubris from a lot of these young Earth creationists. I always tell them, I don't doubt Scripture. I doubt your interpretation of it.
That's a distinction without a difference, Michael. What is Scripture without a proper authoritative interpretation, Michael Jones? Where did this come from? That Scripture is somehow self-existing. Like the images of the text and the letters and the numbers, the way the Scriptures are numbered, is just an anomaly to these people. It just existed. You know? In fact, the people, the body who compiled the canon, they actually had no idea what any of it meant. And luckily they had the foresight. They knew that 1,500 to years later, some other dudes would get it and figure it out. Their task was to merely subject their body as a marionette tool and just pick the papers. You know those like machines where they put you in like a little canister and there's a lot of like air blowing. I mean, you can grab money. These people think that the compilation of the books of the Bible was just dudes in one of those just blindly grabbing things, papers, and binding them together. And then they were like, we should probably interpret the Scriptures that we just compiled. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's start with Genesis 1:1. I don't even think that's translated properly. I agree with like Robert E. Homestead and like Robert Alter that the way it's typically translated is not right.
Yeah.
So like, have some humility. Like, why do they?
Nicolas Cage. Yeah, they knew that Nicolas Cage, aka Michael Jones, was going to figure it out.
You have to think that we are denying Scripture. We're not. At least debate interpretation and stop pretending your interpretation is itself Scripture.
Well, that is the problem.
Irony, man. The irony is so wild.
With a so-called literal interpretation. Nobody does that.
Nobody? This guy says this so often. Nobody, no scientist, nobody.
I remember asking Answers in Genesis. I don't remember who it was. Okay, I'm really confused. I don't understand where Lot's wife came from. You know, not Lot's wife. Sorry, Cain's wife. Cain's wife. A little earlier. Where did Cain's wife come from? And the answer was, well, Adam and Eve had many children, and basically the answer was it was.
So the answer is, where did the wife come from? They plucked her out of the beast corral. They had a beast corral. And then they plucked her and said, God, can you do that thing you did with Adam? Can you do the thing? Do the thing. I really like this one. She's all.
It was incest. Or, although they didn't say it in those.
Oh, right. So, dude. So incest is now horrifying, but bestiality is totally fine.
Those words, but I said, you mean.
Jason McGinney, $5. Thank you so much. Have some humility, quote, says the guy who thinks Genesis 1 has been translated wrong for centuries. It's wild, dude. Jason, I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless.
You mean it's a sister in some way. And the answer there was, long answer about how it wasn't really incest. And I realized, I said, stop right there, because what you're saying may be true, but you don't call that an interpretation?
Mm-hmm. Well, look
you're interpreting the text.
Yeah, look at day 4. Like I've gone around in circles with young Earth creationists. Like, okay, how did light exist? Or how did morning and evening, day and night exist before the sun existed?
Right.
Okay, they have to interpret that. They'll be like, maybe there was another light source. Maybe it's God was there being the light. It's like you're not taking a literal reading, and you can't. You absolutely can't. So like, it's a double standard, unfortunately, and that's what we get from this.
Oh, right. You're not using that.
Lessons we can learn.
Pre-less maxing series.
Learn from the book of Job in the Bible. Now, a lot of people tend to think of, oh, Job is all about death and suffering because of what you can see that happen.
Where were you is beside the point, because that's not what God does say, where were you? But that's just a way of saying, what do you know? You're a human. You didn't make the world. I did. So, then he's judging him. But the fascinating thing to me about the book of Job, and I would love to hear Ken Ham's answer to this, is in everything that God says to Job, he never says how he did anything.
Right.
He says, for example,
Wild, Cy and Michael arguing that in all that God doesn't reveal how mechanistically he does what only God could do. And now, and just 15 minutes ago, they're saying, well, God, made beasts and then plucked one of the beasts and called them Adam, and then Adam could have sex with the beasts and then make more hybrid beast men. And so that happened, and the dust, the dust is a euphemism for the ground, and the ground sprouts up life. And God guides the life through evolution and random mutation, but it's not really random. It's God creating errors in code. And God's playing this really dynamic coding video game where being made in God's image is a process that we're still achieving. It's like naturalistic, not even theosis, because it's becoming man. It's like it's not being made as men, as people in God's image. It's being. You know what I mean? It was like, I was made in God's image. I am made in God's image, and I will be made in God's image. It's like, like Mormons pervert theosis in a similar way, but this is bizarre. This is like, it's not theosis. It's the process of being made in God's image that now is this into question, that we're like becoming. It wasn't a moment in time, a moment for God to say, and I made man, and I made man, made in God's image. Made, past tense.
In chapter 38, again, in verse 33, do you know the laws of the heavens? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Do you know the laws of the heavens? And of course, the answer is no. But he doesn't then go tell Job what the laws of the heavens are. Do you give the horse its strength? This is in chapter 39. Or clothe its neck with a flowing mane. Well, how did the horse get its strength? He's not telling us. So
evolution. It was an evolved accident, according to evolution, a happy accident that the horse developed a beautiful mane, and it was perfectly muscular from eating just grass somehow. Evolutionary anomaly. I mean, that itself is miraculous. A horse is pure, dense, muscle, full of striations and form. Smooth, velvety skin. Shiny hair, long eyelashes. I mean, it's a beautiful animal, but accidental. It accidentally developed the ability to process grass and turn it into super protein for its muscles, accidentally. And then they would say, no, it's not an accidental. We don't take the evolutionary view. We take the evolutionary view, but reject the evolutionary view. We take the evolutionary mechanism and we say God's using it as a tool. He was bored. He likes Legos.
What my point here is that the book of
God likes Spore. Didn't you ever play Spore? It's so fun.
Job is really wonderful. I think it's a great lesson for us. But one thing it does not tell us is how God created life. It certainly does not rule out evolution. It implies that God is the creator of everything. It says that God is the creator of everything.
So God created animals in a non-universal form, the changing form.
And that we don't understand it, even now, with all our science.
Well, Bill, I was going to say, build on that a little bit, because you talk about some of this stuff in your book. I mean, we tend to think that...
Yeah, shill that book, buddy. Shill that book.
Like, when people attack evolution, they're basically attacking an outdated understanding where everything just comes from like genetic mutations, natural selection. But you talk about it in your book here, that there's a lot more to evolution. We've really moved on to an extended evolutionary synthesis where we're finding so many more different ways life has evolved, and it's pointing more towards, like, again, as I talked about earlier, a structuralist or like a finely tuned form of evolution.
Right. So yeah, that's one of the main themes of the book, in fact, is that, you know, and this goes along with what I said before, that we're never done. For a long time, neo-Darwinist evolution, random mutations, natural selection, we're finished, that's it. That's not true, because science keeps moving. And yes, the extended evolutionary synthesis, which includes things like niche construction and non-random mutations, a lot of things, that really became very controversial for a while. A lot of that has now been incorporated into standard evolution.
Steelman says for Steelborn for $10, JB, couldn't a super charitable Steelman of them be that Adam, which is Hebrew for man, was the image bearer, and because of the fall, we had to evolve? No, I don't even think they would say that. Because Adam, from their view, had to be a product of a previous biological creature. So what they're saying ends up being that there's previous biological creatures. Well, were those subject to evolution? Did they evolve, or no? Did God make this creature without evolution, and then Adam was among this, and they had sex, and there was procreation such that Adam existed? But then he took Adam as a vessel and said, let's breathe life into man, and he becomes human. So if the image bearer... if Adam is the image bearer, and because of the fall we had to evolve, no, it doesn't follow that we would have to evolve because of the fall. Because under that view, Adam is made in our form, right? So where did we evolve to if Adam was in the form you and I are in right now? You know what I mean? So that's what's wrong with their view, is they imagine this view where it's like God made a bunch of beasts and plucked Adam, and he had sort of a human form, or they shared exact form, but he got the special sauce of the soul and the mind and the rationality and everything else. And then the rest, his dad, Adam's dad, was just a beast. He could have had cooked wings, could have had eaten them that day, in fact. But that's the thing. It's like, if that's the beginning of man, why are they appealing to evolution, which holds that Adam in our form, our bodily form, actually once wasn't that? It was a long process of not that. So these guys don't even really know what they're holding to insofar as evolution is concerned. Like, they could have a debate with another evolution proponent and they would even disagree with what the hell they're calling evolution. Doesn't even make sense. Happy Friday. Thank you to Cheap Chimp. It is Friday. For those of you who don't know, go follow OrthoThugs. We have a show at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're at 9 of 30, y'all. Got an hour 20 left for that second goal. I thought I would piece it into smaller units without the weight of the big 50. Steelborn, $5. Thank you. Makes sense. Also, would you be interested in being my partner for a different debate? Is nationalism and Christian ethics incompatible? I say no. Yeah, I might be interested in that one. That one sounds good. I think that they're compatible.
Evolutionary theory, but we've gone way beyond that. And that's why the subtitle of the book says New Discoveries. There are discoveries that have been made recently that have not hit the public consciousness yet. And that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to bring those to people. And they're remarkable. There is, for example, a book published by MIT Press in the last 2 years that was written and edited by a number of mainstream scientists, none of whom I believe are Christians, by the way. And the book is titled Evolution on Purpose.
Yeah.
On Purpose. Now that could not have
Evolution on Purpose.
And that's MIT Press, okay? Not
Evolution on Purpose.
Not Tyndale or some Christian publisher. So that book, that title could never have been published 5 years ago.
Right.
And in that book, there are chapters about things like cognition-based evolution, because it turns out that there's cognition in
this topic, many other fields. Oh, wait, sorry. Someone asked something. James says, if they think Adam is a product of a previous creature, how do they interpret Adam being made from dust? They don't even know what they're saying, dude. They would have to say that dust existed and dust meant sort of like earthliness, and then earthliness percolated over billions of years and got under God's nose, and he's just all waiting for the creatures to emerge from it, you know. God didn't actually form from the dust, from a clay. He just was like waiting for some type of form to emerge over a long period of time from just the mud. And then he was like, that good. I like their thumbs. I like those thumbs. So, what's the answer to the point about morning and evening? The question itself assumes that the sun is identical to light. Just because the sun emits light, it doesn't mean the sun is the source of all light ever, right? Light is light. You know what I mean? It's like the sun, the creation of light and the encapsulation and a type of natural source in the created world for light being the sun. It doesn't follow that the sun has to exist the way it does, right? That's just making naturalistic rules for God's creation. It doesn't even follow. That's like saying, like, you know, well, God can't metaphysically, supernaturally create what we call energy, right? And then instill matter with this type of potential energy. Like, there's no contradiction from a Christian perspective, which is funny because, like, the naturalists, like, are trying to still figure out what light even is, you know? So it's like, I don't know, that whole view is like very, very myopic. You're like, oh, well, I don't understand what light is unless there's a sun. Well, that's not even true in the here now. That's not even true right now. Like the reality and the physicality of light, I have a light on me right now. There's no sun. There's literally no sun on me right now, but there's a light on me.
Single cells in bacteria, in other kinds of single cells. It's all throughout life. So is teleology, purpose, and so is agency.
God triggers the fall to create man just to punish man for the fall he didn't cause.
Yes. Yeah, it triggers the fall. Well, it's also like, this came up with my debate with Redeem Zoomer. He had a view of Eden where there was the activity of fallenness. Like, I even asked Redeem Zoomer, which was funny rhetoric. I said, is it possible that Adam's father, his biological father, was a homo, an active homo? And he was like, well, I mean, there's homosexuality in nature, so fine, what's the problem? And I go, oh, interesting. So Adam's father could have been actively gay and it wouldn't have been a problem, right? Before the fall. Before the fall. Animalistic degradation. Adam's own dad. And he said, yeah. Okay, cool. So what's the distinction between, this is the real problem, Lasagna. From this view, there's no real, actual, or metaphysical distinction between pre-fall and post-fall. It's all one big line of action, dominoes. They can't tell you what the distinction is, pre-fall, post-fall for man.
Everything alive acts for a purpose. And that doesn't happen anywhere outside of life. And I make a big point of that in the book, and I show why that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, where did all that come from? How did purpose and agency arrive in a group of chemicals that are stuck together inside a membrane? We don't know. That's one of the questions.
How are you a Christian and you say you don't know? I mean, what is wrong with this guy? I say sin. I say sin. I say something dark. That's what I say.
How did we have purpose? We're still trying to figure out from the science. The science hasn't figured it out. How is it the case that there's purpose in the world? We're still trying to figure it out. The science isn't settled yet, which gives us a chance from a theistic view. We still got a chance.
How do we have purpose? Dude, it's actually getting sad.
That we need to find out about.
Oh, yeah.
We need to find out, right? Unbelievable.
I'm very unhappy, Jimbob. You just had to change the author thugs to exactly the time I have a real-life obligation nearly every Friday.
Oh, no.
Now I can't watch live because you just had to make things more convenient for you too. I'll just watch it back afterwards because I'm a celestial operative.
Ooh, you're
but
an
it'll
operative.
be a worse experience. Bleh. Sticks out tongue.
Well, have you considered quit your jobs? That's literally the tagline for ortho thugs. Quit your jobs.
Talk a little bit about the work of Dennis Noble in this book as well, because
I step on a squeaky toy.
That was an old assumption. We're just a product of our DNA, and now even many evolutionary biologists are saying that's not the case. It's DNA. You know, we are in a sense a product of our DNA, but life itself has the ability in like certain environments to like actually affect its own DNA.
Yes,
and I remember Noble talking about it. It's like when you
metabolic pathways, cognition comes in. Cells are able to.
In your debate with Captain Tazariak, I just posted that yesterday. If anyone wants to see that, we debated in New York on if Jesus is the Most High God. He argued Satan in 1 Chronicles 21 was the devil as God's agent. What if Satan there isn't the devil at all, but the angel of the Lord functioning in an adversary role? Yeah, so it doesn't actually say Satan.
That's a Jewish take, by the way. But the devil's like, he's like your helper. He's actually just helping you.
He's like your older brother. He's trying to help you out. He's trying to nudge you and bully you, but it's for your own development. He's a good guy. Oi, oi, oi. Oi!
I mean, what's a live stream without that dance? Jiffy Bob, please make more vids on Mormonism. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to get more Mormons to debate. I think they're starting to learn their lesson. They're like, well, no, we shouldn't debate.
Satan, I didn't have time to get in. Be nicer to the Israel paleontologists thought it was a fern. This is fascinating. Huh. Wow. No, I've not heard of that, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
No.
I know it's not related, and I apologize. Well, you should. But with two T's, what do you think of the idea of an eternal universe? If it's true, could God still be real? Well, I mean, Richard Swinburne talked about it. It would just still be contingent upon God if it was eternal, because you'd think of like a ball sitting on a cushion from eternally. The ball is still the eternal cause of that.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is why it's so important to become orthodox, because clearly this guy's metaphysics is just lackluster and broken. He basically thinks he's solving a problem and saying, well, even if creation, matter itself was co-eternal, like the Mormons believe, it doesn't change the power and the nature of God, because it's still dependent on God. No, dude. No, that would mean matter shares co-eternal properties with God. That means matter is divine. Okay? That's a contradiction. You can't have a multiplicity of identities, like the actual the very being, right? Someone might say, well, isn't the Trinity a multiplicity? Well, persons, but the nature isn't a multiplicity. There's one nature. If you have matter share divine nature with God and the three persons, then nature is now the fourth person. It's just a personless person. And he's all, yeah, well, it's fine. If there's an eternal, universe, it's totally fine, because it still means God's awesome. It still means God's really awesome and that nature needs God. Well, no, that means that God is now co-eternal with temporality, bro. This guy doesn't think. This guy's not, he has information, but he's not a good thinker. He's not a good thinker. This one. Pay your taxes, you invasive migrant workers. I'm a noble and I'm pitching in. Yeah, thank you, Snagglebeast. For real. Pay your taxes. I don't have all day. I actually still have to make some things for Orthothugs, which is in 5 hours, so I'm getting a little bit frightened. So help me along, shall we? We're not even halfway to the second goal.
Impression in the cushion, even though it never happened in time. Likewise, God could still be the eternal cause of the universe. So that
you can't have the God co-eternal. Oh my gosh, you're such an idiot, dude. I'm sorry. I know I'm supposed to be all formal and be like, well, Michael Jones. Dude, you just contradicted yourself. You can't have an eternally uncreated materia and then say, but God still had to cause the existence of the eternally uncreated materia, dude. You're not a good thinker.
That would work, yeah. Do either of you see credibility in any of the specific cases for intelligent design or any of the intelligent design's ongoing research?
I do.
Oh, you do? All right. That's good.
So stupid. If you're a Christian, by the way, you don't need the intelligent design argument. Why is it? Okay. Why is it you don't need the intelligent design argument? First of all, the intelligent design argument is arguing from the materialist position. So already you're on their side. You're trying to make sense. You're trying to go, well, this design. The reality is you don't need to just look at nature, right? Because reality itself, you can prove this, because to argue against it proves the point, which is reality is not just material. Reality itself, and to talk about reality, the set of preconditions, this is a transcendental argument, the transcendental categories needs to be assumed to have some type of existence, some type of ontology to even talk about nature in a way that you're like, oh, intelligent design, purpose. They grant themselves all of these positions, and then they grant the atheist and the naturalist these categories without asking them justification for them. And everyone's going, well, the transcendental argument is trash. I mean, it's so stupid. Well, if the transcendental argument was trash, the irony is you would need to answer to the transcendental argument for you even to say it's trash. So it's undefeated. But it's just, this is the problem with people taking this approach, this like more foundationalist approach to arguing for God. They're trying to argue for God in reverse. They're, instead of asking what are the necessary preconditions for all of this to be possible, God, they go, can I take all of this and get to God from all of this? And they're always going to lose. They're always going to lose. If you try to take all of this, nature, import intelligent design into the functionality, hyper specialized systems with purpose, if you try to only argue from that position, you're going to lose. Because you're using like naturalism as your bedrock of knowledge.
Let's see. Yeah, I recently did a video with Doug Axe from the Discovery Institute, hosted by Sean McDowell. And obviously we didn't agree on evolution. But when he talks about when he and Steve Meyer and others talk about the origin of life, I'm pretty much on board with that. The only difference I think that I would have is that I don't think that we can explain the origin of life or ever will be able to explain the origin of life.
You can defeat it, Luca. You can defeat the transcendental argument. Go ahead. Go ahead. If you can defeat the transcendental argument, give me one other worldview that can account for the preconditions of knowledge without God. Given that truth, knowledge, laws of thought, they're all mind-dependent and conceptual from your view. You don't even know what the transcendental argument is, dude. Get out of here, jerk. Get out of here, jerk! I'll wreck you! Wrecked! Why don't you steelman the argument first, Luca? Steelman the argument first, and then we'll see if you can defeat it. I bet you can't even steelman it, honestly. I bet you can't even steelman it. Hey, Tony. What am I, goofy? Yeah, I'm going to be ending soon. We got a lot of work to do. I know. Well, this is what it is. I'm a slave driver. I need your stuff to work. No, I need your stuff to work. I need you to open the file I sent you, and I need you to add the voice. Just recently, or? No, but I'll check it when I'm done. Okay, good. I'm glad. I also need another thing from you. So we have, I need three things from you. I'll finish the stream in a bit and call you. What? Okay, fine. All right. I can't tell you on stream because it's going to reveal the bit. So I'll tell you after. All right. Later. Where's Luca? Luca? Where are you? The intelligent design argument. Oh, he's already moved on to the intelligent design argument? I don't understand. What's happening? Am I confused? Am you confused? Did I misinterpret Luca? Is Luca confused? Is he Luca drunk? Are you drunk, Luca? Ay.
The chemistry that we know.
Mm-hmm.
But physicists who study quantum theory.
Yeah, I've heard.
Here's a good question. Someone asked this.
Or leave it.
In general.
Okay, look.
or leave it. It depends. I totally debate. Like maybe the Earth was created young, and then at the fall, it like changed the history. I've heard people say that it changed the history, and it uploaded like this completely like fallen world with a back history of all this death and suffering. Like we shifted like to like a parallel universe, which is like mind-boggling. And I'm just like, I don't see any evidence for that in Scripture.
So what did I say before? These guys don't see any necessary component or distinction, I should say, between a pre-fall metaphysics physics and a post-fall metaphysics physics. They don't see anything necessary. So when the question is like, what do you think about the view that evolution is a product of the fall? Well, the fall this is a contradiction. The fact that they're not even catching the problem here is that if the evolution as we know it, which includes a description of mankind emerging from a long process of not being mankind, then the fall couldn't be caused by human, which is Adam. Okay? So you can't be like, a Christian view holds that Adam is made in the image of God, and with being made in the image of God, he has will, and because he has will, he has the will to act away from God, and from that action, sin comes into the world and forever changes and alters the metaphysics and physics of the world itself. You already started from the end product called a man. It makes no sense to be like, oh, Adam, sin came from Adam, a man with will, made in the image of God. And then the fall happened and it reset everything, right? What? I mean, it's just insane. Logic, morality, and possibly all of knowledge proves God, question mark? Are you asking me? Yeah. Yeah, logic, truth itself, Luca. Truth itself at least gets you to an absolute universal mind, Luca. It's a really simple argument that none of you can refute without completely collapsing the distinction between concrete and abstract. So it goes something like this, Luca. Premise 1, truth is universal and conceptual from your view. Truth is universal and conceptual from your view. Okay. Premise 2, concepts are mind dependent. Okay. Premise 3, humans discover truth. Now this is the part where people get squirrely, because the only alternative to humans discovering truth is humans autonomously building up truth as a fiction, which in that case you're out of the argument anyway. You couldn't know what was true. It's just a fiction, just created, illusory tower. There's only two possible answers to that. Now, we discover truth. There's a truth of the matter of the past even before propositions. There's a truth of the matter of the past, a deep past that even you hold, before propositions come on the scene from humans. So that basically necessitates that a conceptual element of reality that's not identical to material has its own ontology. Well, we know from premise 2, concepts are mind dependent. So you have a necessary mind that precedes all human beings. So there's no way for you guys to get out of this problem.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of support for that.
You're not going to get support from that. Oi.
Listen, we need to do a quick turbo donation because I have to edit like 2 things for Orthothugs, and it's already 12:30. So I'm starting to panic now. With that said, you guys could watch the rest of these dorks. No hard feelings against Michael Jones, but what you've said here today or yesterday on that stream is despicable. I would say disgusting. If your view holds, Michael Jones, that you as a human being and me as a human being and Christ, when he assumed human being nature, he actually assumed a nature that was caused by bestiality. Okay? That's your view. That's your view.